Have you got guts? Of course you do. It's your digestive system. Okay, please be sure to like and subscribe if you like learning about the human digestive system. And if you really like it, you could hire me as a tutor. Just email me. Email's in the description of the video. Now let's get to it. Zoom in on the digestive system. Now, coming through the digestive system, we always start in the mouth. Now think about digestion as going through a couple of stages. Now the first stage is grinding up the food, and that happens in the mouth. The process of ingestion is what happens there. We call that chewing and swallowing. And there's a little word to describe what the food does inside our mouth. It turns into a bolus, a little ball, which is lubricated, and we can push down. And we make that ball by spinning our tongue around in a circle inside our mouth when we eat, and lubricating it and kind of moving it around as we masticate, which is not a dirty word. It means chewing. Now, what happens after you chew? You swallow. And when you swallow, a little structure covers over your glottis. That's the hole down your throat, which leads to your lungs. You do not want food going down there. You will choke. And what do you call something over the glottis? The epiglottis. The word epi, whenever you see it, means on top of. So we swallow. It pushes the epiglottis over the glottis, and food, therefore, gets pushed into our esophagus. Next step on the journey. The esophagus has these wave-like motions called peristalsis. We actually have muscles surrounding all of these tubes here, and they coordinate their movement. So we push food through our digestive system, which means technically you can eat standing on your head. Now, the food gets pushed down your esophagus. All this is just a tube that carries it down to the stomach. Now, the stomach is where the process of chemical digestion starts. You see, we've ground up the food, and now we're going to start mixing it with enzymes and acid in the stomach. And the food that gets broken down into the stomach is called chyme or chyme. I'm never sure how to pronounce that word. C-H-Y-M-E. And it also looks a lot like vomit when it comes back up. But we don't want it to go back up this way. We want it to go this way. And the next step is the small intestine. So the food gets pushed from the stomach into the small intestine. And one of the very first things that happens to it is neutralized because it comes out super acidic. And so it mixes with sodium bicarbonate in here and other enzymes. These are chemicals that help other chemical reactions to happen faster, specifically the chemical reaction of the stuff we're eating getting broken down into small enough particles that we can actually absorb them into our bloodstream. And we push through the small intestine, and then we get to this bigger thing. Now here's something so small intestine goes here, all through here, and we're really just breaking down the food in the small intestine. And by the time we're done this journey, interesting thing about the small intestine, longer than the large intestine. It's small because it has a smaller diameter. Now the food gets into the large intestine, and really the large intestine has 4 parts. You've got the ascending, transverse, descending, and then the rectum. And what do I mean by this? I mean, food comes in here, and this little thing hanging down here is our appendix. We don't need it anymore, but there used to be enzymes and bacteria and stuff that lived in there that helped us to digest grass and really hard to break down plant matter. But when we stopped eating that, the bacteria moved out and this whole thing shriveled up, although it does appear to have some impact on our immune system. Now, food doesn't go down that blind alley. It goes this way. It gets pushed up through the large intestine and then across and then down. Now, mostly by the time we're done in the small intestine, we've absorbed solid nutrients. So really, we're just pushing a brown slurry through there that you might recognize as diarrhea. Because that's what diarrhea is. Diarrhea is what happens when we don't absorb the water out of our fecal matter, and it comes out super runny. But what we do want to do is we do want to absorb the liquid out of that stuff so that it gets to the perfect consistency. By the time the waste arrives here in the rectum, it is it's solid but soft. That's our dream poop. Actually, our dream poop coils in the bowl. And perhaps it's even shaped like an S. I call that a super poop, but let's get back to it. So, when this gets full, we push it out through the anus. Now, the anus is actually a muscle. It's called the anal sphincter, and it closes over this hole. And when we poo, we push it out through the anus. Now just before we go on, let me talk to you about something that's really interesting. If anyone ever asks you what is the pathway of food through our digestive system, just remember the words Messi, Lionel Messi. And what did he get paid in when he was in the Italian league? Lira. You got to be a little bit older to remember that, but that was the money in Italy before they had euro. But why do we say Messi Lira? Why do we want to remember that? Because M, mouth, E, esophagus, stomach, S, small intestine. That's messy. Large intestine, rectum, anus, lira. It's a mnemonic that helps us to remember the pathway of food through our digestive system. Now, there's other aspects to our digestive system, other parts. Food doesn't travel directly through them, but they aid in digestion. And let's talk about a few of these things. So, we have the liver. Now, the liver is the biggest internal organ, and as soon as food leaves the digestive system, it travels to the liver where it's processed, and I should say nutrients that are absorbed from the digestive system go to the liver to be processed. Some get turned into fat. Some are stored as an energy form called glycogen. Alcohol gets detoxified. The liver basically processes our nutrients and organizes them in a way that we can use them. Also, the liver produces bile, which helps us to digest fat, and it's stored in the gallbladder and gets squirted into the small intestine right there. Now, the pancreas is important for a number of reasons, but probably the biggest thing is it produces insulin. Now, insulin is a chemical, specifically it's a hormone, that runs through our blood and tells us to absorb sugar out of the bloodstream. And so insulin helps us to regulate sugar levels in our blood. That's why it's often associated with diabetes. And in fact, if you have diabetes, you have a problem with processing or even producing insulin. That's actually why there's two types. Type 1, you can't produce insulin. Type 2, you can produce it, but your body can't use it properly to process sugars. Either way, you wind up with too much sugar in your blood. Now, we also have the kidneys, and the kidneys are not really part of the digestive system, but they're part of the excretory system. So what's left over after we fully process the nutrients and there's waste products left over, those are floating around in our bloodstream, and we get rid of them through the kidneys. And so our kidneys really filter our blood. And if you have a problem with your kidneys, you can actually run your blood through a machine that will do that job for you. And that's called the dialysis machine. So there you go, the human digestive system. Hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like and subscribe and stick around for the next video. We're going to learn more and more and more about the human body every day. All right, peace.